Most people know Nietzsche for three words: God is dead. Most people hear that phrase and think it means, I don't believe in God. But Nietzsche wasn't making an atheist slogan. He was describing something more like a civilizational event. Think of it this way. Every society organizes itself around some shared sacred horizon, a story about what is real, what is good, what gives life its meaning. For centuries in the West, that horizon was Christianity. It was the frame inside which everything else was interpreted. When Nietzsche says God is dead, he's saying the frame has collapsed. Not that individuals stopped believing, but that the shared horizon lost its authority. And when the horizon disappears, orientation becomes unstable. People still walk, people still talk, people still make moral claims, but the larger frame that gave those claims direction is gone. That's the diagnosis, not a slogan, a warning, because Christianity was never just a private belief. It shaped the entire moral atmosphere of the West. Guilt, mercy, humility, forgiveness, compassion, the dignity of the weak. When Nietzsche says God is dead, he's not talking about church attendance. He's talking about the collapse of a moral world. Now here's what Nietzsche noticed that most people still miss. The ability to condemn Christian hypocrisy often borrows the very moral standard Christianity installed. When we call Christian treatment of the poor a failure, we use a standard that says the poor matter. When we name Christian violence a betrayal, we're measuring it against a crucified Christ who looks nothing like domination. When we call power-hungry religion corrupt, we're borrowing from the one who blessed the meek. The critique borrows the grammar it uses to judge the failure. Think about what happens when abuse scandals break inside religious institutions. The outrage is real, the condemnation is right, but notice what the outrage is measuring against. We're not angry because powerful institutions failed to maximize their interests. We're angry because a shepherd preyed on sheep. We're angry because the one who was supposed to look like Jesus looked like his opposite. The moral injury only lands that hard because we already know what Christianity is supposed to look like. Mercy, humility, care for the least, sacrifice, not domination. You cannot be betrayed by something you never expected anything from. The depth of the outrage is itself proof that the standard is still alive. That's not incidental. That means Christianity went deeper than formal belief. It shaped the moral reflexes of the culture. And here's what it actually built. Christianity did something historically disruptive. It elevated the lowly, centered the poor, and declared that every person had value before God, not just the noble, the strong, the useful, or the victorious. In the ancient world, strength was admired, rank mattered, victory mattered. Greatness wasn't measured by how gently you treated the weakest person in the room. Christianity broke that open, not perfectly, not without contradiction, but it broke it open. And Nietzsche had a name for what Christianity did to the old value system. He called it slave morality. In older aristocratic cultures, the strong defined what was good. Pride was good, victory was good, power was good. The noble man didn't ask permission to flourish. But Christianity flipped the table. Meekness became a virtue. Pity became a virtue. Humility became a virtue. Forgiveness became a virtue. And pride, domination, self-assertion, these became sins. Nietzsche believed the weak couldn't defeat the strong directly, so they defeated them morally. They took their own condition, suffering, lowliness, restraint, and declared it the highest good. Now, Nietzsche isn't right about everything here. He's grinding an axe, and it shows. But the observation underneath the rage is real. Christianity did reverse the hierarchy of ancient values. It elevated what power had always dismissed. And once that reversal happened, it became the water Western culture swam in, so deep that people stopped noticing where it came from. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Nietzsche wasn't worried about edgy atheists. He was worried that people would abandon Christianity while pretending its morality could float in midair without it. Modern secular culture rejects the theology. It rejects sin, judgment, divine command, resurrection, and the authority of a sacred order. But it kept the moral instincts Christianity normalized. Compassion is good. Cruelty is evil. The weak should be protected. Every person has dignity power cannot erase. And Nietzsche's one question is this: why? Not why does compassion feel right? Not why does cruelty make you sick? Those are real responses, and they matter. But feelings are not foundations. If you ask someone why cruelty is wrong, most people will say something like, because it causes harm, or because I wouldn't want it done to me, or because most people agree it's wrong, or simply because it just is. Those answers feel satisfying until you press on them. If morality is harm, someone still has to define what harm means and whose definition rules. If morality is the golden rule, why should I care what happens to someone else at all? If morality is consensus, it changes when consensus changes. And history shows consensus has agreed to some terrible things. None of those answers are nothing, but none of them are bedrock either. Nietzsche's point isn't that compassion is bad. His point is that people who inherited compassion as a moral instinct often can't tell you what the instinct is standing on. They feel it, they can't ground it, and there's a difference. And that's exactly where Nietzsche becomes most useful. That's the knife he puts into the modern moral imagination. If the world is only biology, competition, and survival, then compassion isn't automatically sacred. It might be useful, it might feel right, but that's different from saying it is morally true. A civilization can keep using inherited moral capital long after it stops replenishing the source. That's what moral leftovers means. You can reject Christianity and still live in the world Christianity built. You can take the paintings off the wall and still sit in the house. You can mock the root and still eat the fruit. For a while. If morality is just consensus, it changes when consensus changes. If morality is utility, the useless become morally vulnerable. If morality is autonomy, obligation to others gets hard to explain. Christianity answered these questions through a sacred vision of the person. Human beings mattered because they stood before God, not because society voted them valuable, not because they were efficient or strong, because they possessed a value that power didn't create and therefore couldn't erase. Nietzsche saw that. He hated much of it, but he saw it clearly. And that's why his thought is still dangerous. He doesn't let Christians reduce faith to soft moral sentiment. He doesn't let secular people reject God while casually keeping Christian ethics. He forces the question all the way down. What do you actually believe about value? What are those beliefs standing on? So maybe the question isn't whether modern people outgrew Christianity. Maybe the question is, did modern people actually outgrow Christianity? Or did they just stop recognizing the moral house they still live in?